Hazard pay is back on, baby. It's in the third stimulus package if you're an essential worker and worked in the pandemic and are 19 years or older, and you made less than $25,000. But could that $10,000 of hazard pay from Nancy Pelosi of 2020 come back under fourth stimulus package? Enjoy this overnight LALATE video on a throwback explaining hazard pay. Great news, Nancy Pelosi is about to introduce a pot bill. So every time we don't know Mark Meadows' real name, whatever his name is, we finally have an excuse why. Good afternoon, everybody. This is LLA. Hope you're good and safe, and hope the haze over whatever you're doing is settling. But, Nancy Pelosi wants to make it a bill next week. Thanks for tuning in for Hazard Pay every day at 4 o'clock, following check at 3:30. This is part of our 2-hour programming block here on LLA. That starts with a check, then goes to Hazard Pay, then FPUC, and finally rent, part of our 3.5-hour programming schedule every day here on LLA. Thank you so much for joining me at those every day to like and subscribe to this channel as we try to near 250,000 subscribers. Let's do it right now. Hazard Pay got 2 twists today, and the twists are quite fascinating, and so let me get to the incredible details. First, there's a real push, and certainly a push on social media, and I think you should be behind it, to really get Mitt Romney to step up his movement on Hazard Pay, because he himself singularly wrote the best hazard pay bill out there that anyone has ever seen. And it's incredibly good with the exception of the total dollar amount, but it's incredibly good because it orders businesses to give you hazard pay. And in a universe in which we sit here in September where no one's doing much of anything, and Mitt Romney has always been sort of that person on his own, moving to the beat of his own drum, this is certainly one thing you need to get behind if you want hazard pay. What is hazard pay? What are essential workers? How much money could you get? And why is this video so important to you as you enter the fall months? Hazard pay is a term described as a bonus to people who work as essential workers during the pandemic. Now, generally, hazard pay and essential workers have been 2 terms that have been really misconstrued and confused by businesses. And that confusion sort of stems online as well. Let me explain why. Hazard pay is not a new term. It's been around since, over 80-something years. And the term was to describe people who work in times of needs and times of emergencies and should be compensated additionally for their work. So hazard pay is perceived as a hourly rate that goes on top of your normal hourly rate. It is generally perceived to be paid to people who are also independent contractors, so let me make that very clear. The manner in which it's calculated is just a little bit more complicated. Then there's the issue of essential workers. Who are the essential workers? Well, this is really, it depends on where you're talking about. If we're talking about city and state agencies, then their essential workers are their city employees or state employees. But if we're talking about a private business, we're talking about their employees or their independent contractors. And we're talking about legislation, we're talking about a lot of you. Who are generally essential workers? And what you need to understand is that while the HEROES Act from the Democrats defined essential workers, and I've done a lot of videos on that, the terms and the nature of who qualifies is very broadly construed. So, generally, hazard essential workers can include transport, anything for transport, whether truck drivers or Uber or Lyft or taxi or shipping and receiving, aerospace as well. It also includes every single thing about medical, whether home health care or nursing care or social services or in-house, out services. You know what I mean. Clearly, I'm not a doctor. I only play one on YouTube. It encompasses all those things as well. It also encompasses anything that really generally kept businesses going, like maintenance. Some of the things that are really sort of gray areas are plumbing, electricians, and contractors. I'll tell you why. On some cities, like here in Los Angeles County, those businesses were defined as essential workers during the pandemic by existing ordinances. But when you looked at the HEROES Act, it absolutely did not. It's really not quite clear. But this is not the purpose of this video to say you are or you aren't. The purpose of this video is to really understand for you if you do qualify for hazard pay, and that you should be part of this discussion. You should be watching this video every day at 4 o'clock. Hazard pay would also include anyone working in grocery stores, which is really, really the most important group of people to get you hazard pay going forward. And I have that coming up right away. So with all that, and you think about that, would you qualify if you say, hey, yeah, I definitely am that type of person. I did that type of work. But I got fired, but I got laid off, but I don't work there anymore, or I had 2 of those jobs, or I'm just not sure. Here's what you need to know about hazard pay. Hazard pay conceptually pays you whenever you work during the pandemic in that essential workplace. So it doesn't matter that you got fired. It doesn't matter that you got laid off. It doesn't matter that you got furloughed. It doesn't matter that you left and then came back or took maternity leave or anything like that, because all that still qualifies. You still qualify for the amount of time that you exerted. And that's that. It's very straightforward. Now, the reason why I just gave that explanation is because the businesses, as we sit here in October, and the flies are really trying to come and get me, and the bugs as well, is that the businesses want you to think that hazard pay is something totally different. Yeah. This is where the false narrative starts. This is where people are trying to tell you, hey, hazard pay is something else. And what they do is they start this way. The businesses tell you it's not hazard pay, it's called bonus pay. Why? Because they don't want to say the place of work is hazardous. So they call it bonus pay. Second, they want to tie the bonus pay or the hazard pay not to whether or not you're working, not to whether or not COVID-19 still does not have a vaccine, but rather to how many people are walking in the door to buy products at that store. Or, how many people, if you're an online business only, how many people they sold to that day. That's not the purpose of hazard pay. Hazard pay has never been tied to the fact of how many people are being serviced by the business. Hazard pay has nothing to do with customer retention or customer transactions. And so this is what's so important that's happening today, is that a lot of people who know they qualify for hazard pay, who have watched this video on a regular basis, who know, hey, I know I qualify for that $10,000 in the HEROES Act. I know I qualify for that $5,000 in the HEROES Act. I know I worked during the pandemic. I've done your calculations. You explained it to me. $13 an hour for every hour I work from January all the way up to the present. I know how to do that. So why is my boss saying there's no such thing as hazard pay here? Because 1, they don't want to call it hazard pay. 2, they want to call it bonus pay. And 3, they want to say there's no one coming back in the doors. So yeah, we're open, and yeah, you're working, and yeah, there's plexiglass shield guards everywhere, and you're in face masks, but it's not hazardous. It's just we just dress that way. And that's where the false narrative has started. Mitt Romney wanted to deal with this accordingly. And so he in May introduced a bill, and the bill was absolutely incredible. It was called the Patriot Pay, and now there's a movement among Republicans and Democrats, and you should be behind the movement as well. Go on Twitter, go on social media, share this video, tag Mitt Romney, and say, hey, I'm in favor of the Patriot Pay. Bring it to a vote. Romney's a senator. Romney's in the Senate. He's a Republican. He's part of Mitch's party. Mitch's party didn't get anything done last week. How about they get something done with Romney? Romney's very well regarded, and this is a bill that on its face does not appear to be partisan. It is a bipartisan bill. The way it was written is the following. It's $12 an hour for frontline workers who worked during the pandemic. Frontline and essential workers would get a pay bump under the Patriot Pay. The Patriot Pay Act is a proposal by the Utah senator that would pay employees in eligible jobs. The increase would extend through May, June, and July, and would pay employers and the federal government via payroll tax credit. Okay, let me slow that down because there's a lot of information. It would pay you for what happened while you were working in May, June, and July. Now, I understand we're in September. That still means they would pay you retroactively. Next, when we talk about this payroll tax credit, it would pay the employer to apply for you and require the employer to apply for you. Oh my goodness, this is incredibly great news. I mean, this is what we always wanted. We wanted a bill where the employer has to apply for you. There's no question that they're going to apply for you. They will apply for you because it's required to apply for you. And why will they also apply for you? Because they'll be paid to apply for you. They will be compensated for applying for you. They'll be paid via payroll tax credit. Workers in industries designated by Congress and Department of Labor, including hospitals and grocery stores, and health manufacturers, are included in the bill. Romney issued a press release at the time, and this is what the bill said: healthcare professionals, grocery store workers, food processors, and many others are the unsung patriots of the front line of this pandemic. Every day risk their safety for the health and well-being of our country, and they deserve our unwavering support. Amen, Romney. He continued, Patriot Pay is a way for us to reward our essential workers as they continue America safe, healthy, and fed. I love that. Ironically, at the moment that Romney, a Republican, introduced the bill, Sanders also came out and said, I support a hazard pay bill right away. And that was not the only time that Sanders has said it. Sanders has talked about hazard pay, I think, more than any other Democrat. So you really need to tag Sanders as well. This form of hazard pay would be complement, not replace, an employer's responsibility for their workers. It's designed to quadruple any bonuses an employee gives to essential workers, says Romney's office in a news statement at the time. You know, the focus should really be hazard pay, and a new article, an opinion piece published today in the Philadelphia Inquirer, written by an incredibly well-spoken individual, says that, we can't keep on doing this. We need better. The person who wrote it was Brian String, president of UFCW Local 152. Who are they? If you've listened to the channel, you've heard me mention them before. They're a union that represents 13,500 workers in grocery stores and essential businesses servicing New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland. It's important to understand when we talk about a local like that. These unions are really helpful because what they do is they bring the discussion to the front, especially when hazard pay, because they represent so many people. A lot of you work at a grocery store, but you may not be unionized. You may work in a pharmacy, but you may not be unionized. You may be a shipper or a handler or a security guard, but you may not be unionized. These people help you because ultimately they're pushing the same narrative, they're pushing the same discussion. And as COVID-19 continues to ravage our country, we represent 13,000 workers in supermarket, healthcare facilities, and manufacturing plants. And given the risks, our employers have not stepped up. The members of our union know firsthand the dangers that have not disappeared, yet many of the local grocery chains ended hazard pay for these workers as if the pandemic was suddenly over and their employers were no longer at risk. Amen. Some workers, especially those in healthcare, whose risk is potentially even greater, never received hazard pay at all. Awful. I mean, this is exactly what I just said. It was stunning to see certain grocery chains raking in billions of dollars in profit and choosing to cut hazard pay. The discussion is not unique. We've been detailing on this channel, I've been detailing on this channel over the last couple days. Kroger, Whole Foods, I think it was Giant, and then another one have been all the subject of protests at multiple locations because they refuse to give another round of hazard pay. On top of this, our workers have worked harder during this crisis. Many of them have been lacking products. Many of our region's largest companies refuse to release numbers on how many of those workers have died, becoming sick, or exposed during the pandemic. It's outrageous that these CEOs are keeping us in the dark about the hazards. Again, these are his opinions, not mine, but it's very fascinating to hear how important the situation is. As we sit here today and we wonder where could hazard pay go, it is dependent upon you and the Purple Power. You need to tag Romney, tag Sanders, and say, hey, we need hazard pay. I know I have some viewers on Twitter who are especially focused on hazard pay. I know I have a lot of people on Instagram that really are focused on hazard pay. They want the money. They worked in the pandemic. And what you need to understand, if I didn't say it clearer earlier in this video, is that if you worked any time during the pandemic as an essential worker, you qualify for hazard pay. If you were laid off for part-time, you qualify for hazard pay. And I don't always mention this because it's depressing, but it's the truth. If you had a family member who worked during the pandemic and has died, whether or not it's because of the pandemic or not, you're entitled to get their hazard pay for them. I had a very nice viewer overnight that had a comment about their child dying because of the pandemic, not about hazard pay, but about stimulus checks. And I had to remind them that, yeah, if you're a successor in benefit to that individual's estate, you're entitled to their stimulus check. But, I don't want to be talking about people dying. I want to ensure that businesses are safe and that people are getting their stimulus checks and people are getting hazard pay and people are getting their unemployment benefits. And that's why you need to stay with this channel, because my focus is getting you the money and the relief that you need. Go to the front channel, hit the subscribe and alert button so you get an alert when a new video goes live. No one has focused more on getting people relief than this channel since the pandemic started. I started with EIDL back on April 25th. I started with 5 videos per day. I started with EIDL, PUA, PPP, my most unfavored instrument, and then I think it was EIDL grant. I think I did 2 EIDL videos at the time. I got viewers of this channel $10 to $25 million they had not gotten but for my help. I had other viewers helping one another. I had an incredible movement for people to start stepping up and helping one another. I did not come from a universe of doing American Idol videos the day before. I did not jump from American Idol videos to Stimulus or from Real Housewives to Stimulus. I was focused on getting people fortunes for EIDL to save their businesses, to save their employees, to save their families, and I did it. And no one else can take credit from this channel by giving you a false narrative otherwise. That is the spirit of this channel and continues to be the spirit of this channel as we continue to help people and have it go forward. And I wish you to do the same. If you know about grant programs in your area, DM me on Twitter or Instagram. If you know about relief programs, DM me or tweet me. The spirit of the channel is helping one another, and we're here to help one another. We're not here to be anything other than that. So go to the front channel, hit the subscribe and alert button, and also like this video. It helps the video appear higher in the algorithm. Coming up next is FPUC, PUA, and UI. I'll be answering your questions. God, we're getting about 10,000 questions a day about unemployment benefits. And then after that, stay tuned for EIDL and rent. I'll be bringing EIDL into afternoons also. As always, stay informed, stay smiling, and stay with LA for more.